With the clock ticking down to the Brexit deadline of April 2019, the UK and the European Union finally got down to business. The talks began cordially, but hinted at potential conflicts to come.
Our objective is clear. We must first tackle the uncertainties caused by Brexit. First for citizens, but also for the beneficiaries of the EU policies and for the impact on borders.
We will do all that we can to ensure that we deliver a deal that works in the best interests of all citizens. To that end, we're starting this negotiation in a positive and constructive tone, determined to build a strong and special partnership between ourselves and our European allies and friends for the future.
The talks begin at a shaky time for the UK. Prime Minister Theresa May's Conservative Party lost its parliamentary majority in this month's election, and she's been criticised for her handling of the political fallout from a fire in West London that killed dozens of people. Several terror attacks have added to the tense backdrop. The UK says it wants to regain sovereignty from Brussels without hurting its economy, but that's easier said than done. Last year, the UK boasted the strongest growth among G7 countries, but in the first 3 months of this year, it was the slowest growing economy in Europe. Inflation is at a 4-year high, while the pound fell close to 1% against the dollar on Monday and fell to its lowest level against the euro. As investor confidence appears to be weakening, getting the right Brexit deal will be crucial for businesses and taxpayers.
When I talk about a Brexit that supports British jobs, British investment, British business, I mean a Brexit that avoids those cliff edges, that ensures that we segue seamlessly from the customs union that we're in at the moment to a new arrangement in the future that will continue to allow British goods to flow, not just without tariffs, because actually tariffs are a relatively small part of the problem. It's without delays and bureaucracy. We've got to make sure that our border continues to work seamlessly, and that's probably the #1 challenge for business.
After Monday's talks end, both sides have less than a month before the next round. A deal must be made by the end of next year. That should allow enough time for all EU countries to ratify the pact. The UK's Brexit Minister David Davis says he's optimistic of achieving a deal like no other, but his optimism may be tested in the months ahead. Adefemi Akinsanya, TRT World.
TRT World's Simon McGregor-Wood is in Brussels for the talks and sent us this report.
Well, you remember that the Remain campaign was largely built on the economic damage that would be inflicted on the UK if it left the European Union, and that was eventually the decision that the referendum established. Now, one of the interesting developments in recent weeks has been as a result of the British general election, the fact that Theresa May and the Conservatives don't have a majority, her call for a hard Brexit, leaving the European single market, leaving the customs union, all of which the British business community hates, by the way, is now perhaps not so likely because people are interpreting the election as a vote against that vision of the Brexit. And in recent days, as if to latch on to that, we've had all sorts of senior British business leaders emerging, writing opinion pieces in British newspapers, writing open letters to the politicians saying, now is the time to reconsider what kind of Brexit we want. Because make no mistake, the British business community, and of course many in the European business community as well, do not like the idea one bit of the UK pursuing the so-called hard Brexit. We have British business managers talking about the damage of reducing immigration to their businesses, the damage of customs arrangements being put up again between UK exporters and the European markets. They don't like the idea one bit, and I think now they see a chance in a weakened UK government of pushing their case. And interestingly, in recent days, they also have one potential ally, Philip Hammond, the British Treasury Minister. He has come out quite strongly in favour of a softer Brexit as well. So that's an interesting development from the business side.
So let's get the view from investors now that the talks are underway. Joining me from London is Craig Erlam, Senior Market Analyst at brokerage firm OANDA. Craig, thank you so much for joining us once again on Money Talks. Look, the UK economy has gone from being a roaring success last year to having some rather troubling signs of weakness. How does all of this affect the bargaining position of the government as they go into these talks?
Well, I think it's worth noting that this was entirely expected, and I think a large part of the slowdown has been driven by the weakness which we've seen in the pound as a result of the vote to leave the European Union and the uncertainty which followed, which is also linked to the actual decline in the pound itself. I don't think it's necessarily linked so much to the weak positioning that the UK has. The weakness in that side actually comes from the fact that we've just had an election in which Theresa May wanted her hand strengthened and instead had it significantly weakened. So that is where we're starting to see a change in tone potentially from her parliament, rather than talking about a hard Brexit or no Brexit. Instead, they are talking about their friends and wanting to do a good deal for all concerned, and I think that's a very noticeable shift since the election a couple of weeks ago. Indeed.
Craig, give us a sense of the mood on the trading floor where you are. Pound against the dollar and euro pretty much steady today, stocks ticking up slightly. But do these numbers hide a certain anxiety among investors from where you're standing?
Well, I think it's the uncertainty which really does hang over the markets right now, and like I say, it's almost a cliche that the markets hate uncertainty, but they really do. I think even bad news sometimes gets a better response in the markets to no news, because at least people then know exactly what it is that they're dealing with. And I think what the levels that we're seeing the pound at now are around the lowest that we've seen since the post-Brexit vote. Of course, we have rebounded a little, and I think we're being supported currently by these higher inflation numbers, which are prompting a bit more of a hawkish rhetoric from the Bank of England. But I think now that the negotiations have started, I think we'll go a little bit quieter. I think we'll see a little less posturing and a little bit more negotiating, which we've wanted for the last 12 months. But that could be supportive for the pound, because the less talking we have, hopefully, it means the less chance there is of a hard Brexit and more chance of a friendly Brexit.
OK, Craig Erlam, OANDA Securities in London, thank you ever so much.